Hey, what's up, my people? John Middlekauff, new YouTube channel. What I need you to do, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, share with your friends. Appreciate everyone that has. It's the podcast, 3 and Out. You can listen wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify. We got you covered. Also, thevolume.com. We got merch right here. Flex Fit hat. Go to thevolume.com. Get yourself a 3 and Out hat. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. Just watched a little of the opening ceremonies, media night, pretty star-studded. Mahomes, Kelsey, Kittle, Purdy, Shanny, Andy Reid. Was like, I wonder if someone's going to say something nuts. No. These guys, I was hoping for some crazy comment, but that, at least in terms of the TV and what I saw on the internet, didn't come. But you never know. Everyone's available. A lot of reporters doing some back channel stuff. So we'll dive into that, as well as just some coaching news today. Comments about Mike Vrabel's size. Ben Johnson telling Washington, I'm out, while they were flying to see him. And just some overall thoughts on Washington getting Kliff Kingsbury to come there. And then a couple other things around the league. So we got a lot going on right now, which is a fun time. Super Bowl week, stories left and right, last game of the year, buckle up. But before we dive into the Super Bowl, do you guys know about my very, very close friends and the official ticketing app of this podcast? I was just talking to, I'm on a text chain with my brother and a couple of our good friends. And we have a family friend, successful business guy, that just bought 6 tickets to the big game, going to Vegas. He spent over $70,000. Now, most of us won't be doing anything like that, but if you want to go to an event, probably a little more economical, you want to go to a concert, you want to go to a comedy show, you want to go to a football game. Obviously, you only got one more game left, but basketball, hockey, baseball's right around the corner. You a Yankee fan? You want to watch your team miss the playoffs again? Dodger fan? Maybe this is your year. Here's what you need to do. Download the Game Time app. Buy any pair of tickets. And when you do it, type in the promo code JOHN. 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 $20 off. Just go use my promo code, $20 off. Save yourself a little bit on tickets. I'm here to help. Don't need a thank you. Just hammer that promo code, download the Game Time app. One thing the NFL has done a really, really good job of is just balance the circus of the stories and the substance of the games. Like, one problem the NBA has had is their off-the-court circus of trades, free agency, the woes drama on the pie chart of importance relative to the game dwarfs that. And their games no longer matter. Feels like their games are irrelevant. Baseball's in this world like the hot stove winter meetings start and no one signs forever. And then their games, like you play 162 of them, there's not much urgency to the sport. Where football, every game matters. You feel urgency when you watch it. Then all the personnel stuff, whether it's trade, whether it's a guy getting cut, the storylines about individual players really feel big. And I'm watching media night, which whenever they change the Super Bowl from 1 week to 2, genius. What this thing has become, now you couldn't pay me to attend with a media badge to one of these. It seems like my worst nightmare. But as just a fan of football, throwing on the opening ceremonies, watching all these guys on the same stage together, getting asked some questions, it feels big. It starts the lead up to this week, which obviously being in Vegas, the buzz, the Super Bowl, it's a star-studded. I mean, you watch tonight, you can't ask for much more star power. You got the best coach and the best quarterback in the Super Bowl. Then you have this team that's trying to finally get over the hump that is full of star players. Andy Reid gave Trent Williams a hug when they were crossing on like the bridge as the Chiefs were leaving and the 49ers were coming. You could tell the big guy didn't want to let go of Trent. He wanted to bring Trent with him to the Chiefs practice facility. And the 49ers are full of stars, and they have this polarizing quarterback. Like, you can't get anything better than this one team trying to just create a new dynasty and this other team that is absolutely loaded trying to finally get over the hump. And for a long time, that was Andy's career. And then he got over it. Then he got over it again. And we don't even discuss it anymore. And that's what the 49ers feel like right now. And every single human being alive has an opinion on Brock Purdy, which for me right now, I don't know any other opinion beside it's one of the most incredible stories we've ever seen through 2 years. And if the 49ers win, more than likely history would say the quarterback typically like 70% of the time gets Super Bowl MVP. If he won the Super Bowl MVP, it'd be one of the craziest accomplishments in league history. But just a fun time to be a football fan. This is a fantastic matchup. These are two teams that, both chasing different things. But I thought media night was a good example of all these guys have been there and done that. You're not catching any gotcha moments. None of these guys are going to say anything stupid, at least their star power. We got this growing controversy. I don't know why, if you're going to Vegas and you have this state-of-the-art NFL facility with the Raiders, why you wouldn't change like one team practice in the morning and one team practice in the afternoon. It's one thing when you go to Miami or you go to New Orleans and you have access. I know LSU's a little bit far away, but you know what I mean. You go to LA, you can use USC, UCLA, whatever. You go to a place like Vegas, there is clearly a cream of the crop operation in terms of their facilities with the Raiders. And then there's UNLV football, which my entire life has been a joke program. Why wouldn't you stagger the two teams to practice with the Raiders? One practices before lunch, one practices after lunch. Because it's not like you're moving into the coach's office. You go back to your hotel and do your film study, do your meetings, and eat. So beside the weight room and the practice facility, you're not there that long. So the 49ers bitching and moaning about their practice field. Obviously, it's outdoors. It's pouring rain. I hate the storyline because I don't want any excuse with the 49ers. It sucks that it came up, but I also think this was easily avoidable. Listen, the Chiefs, they're the home team. You guys are both using the Raiders facility. You get first pick. Do you want to practice from 9 to noon or 2 to 5? Take your choice. You guys pick first. Whatever one you don't, Niners, you're there. That would have been an easy solution. The moment last week, there were some unease with the practice facility. Now, Kyle was asked about it. He immediately said that they're not just talking it anymore. They're going to practice there. It is what it is. Andy Reid was asked because Matt Barrows, who covers the 49ers, claimed the Chiefs refused to change any of their schedule. He called that bullshit. Listen, we needed a little juice here because these players are not going to say anything. Kelsey and Kittle are friends. Purdy and Mahomes have, Big 12 guys, a lot in common. Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. I mean, Andy's been coaching against the Shanahans for 30 years. But this does add a little bit of something because we're not going to get many like, fuck this guy. We're going to kick their ass from any player that matters. Right? I mean, I saw they asked Tony of the Chiefs if he thought he was a number one wide receiver. Some of these, and this was by Michael Robinson. Like, Michael, what are you asking him that for? He's lucky to be a number 3 receiver in the NFL at this rate. So some of these questions, a little outrageous. That young little Jeremiah, if you had a chance to see, the little journalist from Vegas was crushing. Very well-spoken young man asking good questions. But listen, good kickoff to Super Bowl week. Genius by the NFL. I also noticed a lot of the big J's are going after Roger Goodell because he used to do his press conference on Friday, and now he does it on Monday, right before this event, where it limits how many, a lot of guys are flying in. And it is crazy how many people go after Roger Goodell. The NFL has never been more popular. The players and coaches have never made more money. Any media member worth their salt has never made more, that talks about the NFL, has never made more than he's making right now in 2024. And if you haven't, that's on you. Like, clearly you don't know what you're doing because the money is flowing around the National Football League. Yet Roger Goodell, Adam Silver on the flip side, the league is going the wrong direction, ratings in the tank, and gets treated like he's fucking Jeff Bezos meets Elon. Like, this guy's a genius. Yet whenever Roger does anything, the media is just coming for his neck. It's crazy. I'm not some NFL The Shield shill here, but like, it's crazy. Everything has never been healthier. anyone around the NFL, I can speak for myself, is having a ton of success because of the popularity of the league. So if that's my case, I can't even imagine about the popular quote unquote big J's. I mean, Florio never stops going after him. Florio's never made more money because of the popularity of this sport. And it's like, it's crazy. It just shows you the difference of the leagues. I mean, Roger Goodell is treated like a criminal. Silver's treated like he's a founding father of sports. And it's wild. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if it's, he doesn't need them, so maybe he's not as nice. It's just the nature of the way the sport is covered. As Colin says, there's less pom-pom waving. Maybe overall it keeps the sport healthier with that mindset. I don't quite get it. Like, listen, whether you agree or disagree with everything Roger's doing, at least we can say, like, hey, things are going pretty well right now. Pretty enjoyable. Like, NFL, congrats on the fun season. We all benefit. Fans, us that talk about it, players, coaches, executives, owners, everyone surrounded with the league. It's like, things are going pretty well. We're going to complain about certain things because, listen, it's America. It's what we do. It's like, get this off the streaming services. It's like 23 million people watching on Peacock. 300,000 people watch Spurs OKC. I think the NFL is doing something right, guys. But holy I saw so many articles and people going after Roger today. I'm not trying to act like he's Mother Teresa, but holy shit, things are going pretty well right now. DraftKings, the leader in fantasy sports, just dropped a brand new fantasy app, Pick Six. Pick Six is the newest way for you to get in on fantasy football action with DraftKings. Just pick between 2 and 6 NFL players and choose if they're going to have more or less of a stat. For example, will a player have more or less than 100 rushing yards, or will a player have more than 1 touchdown? Track your lineup and compete against others for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and sign up with code JOHN. That's code JOHN, John, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Okay, let's dive into some coaching news around the league. I watched a decent amount of Dan Quinn's press conference. And to me, the biggest story coming out of Washington is not really the head coach or anything that I saw said was there. Or I saw that he said on the podium or dais with Adam Peters and Josh Harris. It's the news that broke a couple days ago, and they talked about it a little bit today about Kliff Kingsbury. And one of the things when it comes to assistant coaching and head coaching, there's no budget. You can spend whatever you want. I mean, technically, your team or your owner can have a budget, but there's no cap. If you want to sign a $50 million coach, if you want to sign a $500,000 coach, you can do whatever you want. And the one thing that has happened in Power 5 and definitely the NFL is the amount of money these coordinators make now is outrageous. And we have countless defensive coordinators in the NFL making $4 and $5 million, right? You have offensive coordinators now making a lot of money. I think it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I had a high-ranking NFL official who is in charge of money, telling me there wasn't a coordinator offensively or defensively, and that includes offensive coordinators that their head coach is an offensive coordinator. All of them were making over 7 figures. I mean, we have countless coaches in Power 5 now making $2 to $2.5 million a year. So being a coordinator, and we'll get into Ben Johnson, is a very lucrative job. But you can also outbid teams when it comes to coaches. So when a guy is a quote-unquote free agent, an offensive or defensive coordinator, like, you can make an offer that's better than another offer. Obviously, a guy like Kliff Kingsbury was in high interest around the NFL. The Raiders wanted Kliff Kingsbury. And I haven't seen specific numbers, but it's pretty clear. And this is when you get owners that are willing to cut big checks, you can outbid other teams. Kliff Kingsbury was a Raider. It was reported. Schefter was like, he's going to the Raiders. So I remember I said last week, like, nice hire, cool, like, smart move. I would much rather have Kliff Kingsbury than Chip Kelly. And then all of a sudden, talks broke down, and he ends up with Washington. Well, let's read between the lines. And in fairness to Mark Davis, he's paying so many people not to work right now. It's like, wait, I'm going to pay Kliff. Washington's willing to pay him $4 million. I'm not doing that. So I don't even, this is not even talking shit about the Raiders. But Washington is like, okay, you really want this guy? Here's what I like about Kliff. If you have success, and we'll get into, their quarterback situation, who's hiring to be their head coach? Maybe a college team, but you don't have to worry about, and he doesn't want to go to college to be a head coach now. Probably wants to be an NFL head coach again. To me, a lot like Arthur Smith, he's got several years of not going anywhere. Bobby Slowick, another good year, head coach in the NFL. Clint Kubiak, who's going to go to New Orleans, if they win 11 games and Carr looks good, he's going to be an NFL head coach. To me, Kingsbury, I've seen him be a head coach. Didn't really love it. Now, a lot of people that have been around him really support his offensive genius. I'm more of an old school guy, like a little more physicality in my offense, but I won't dispute the guy knows quarterback play, and just offensive ball. If you like that style of offense, and Dan Quinn talked about spreading it out, I get it. Wouldn't be my cup of tea. Little old school there. More into the Bears hire. Shane Waldron, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Bobby Slowick, LaFleur. I'm in that style offense. Even Andy Reid, who is a throw the ball guy, has a physical element to his game. When I watch Kingsbury, Chip Kelly, not my cup of tea. But listen, this is subjective business. But I do like that Washington and their owner was aggressive to get the guy that their head coach wanted, and was willing to cut a check that the Raiders clearly were uncomfortable, paying. Now, here's a reality if you're Kingsbury. What is a better job for you to look good? The Raiders that have no quarterback, that don't have a top 5 pick, and if they're going to get a guy, they're either going to have to trade a shitload to move up or just hope a guy falls to them, or Washington with the 2nd overall pick. To me, and who already has wide receivers. Now, the Raiders do have some weapons. They have no quarterback, and there is no route to them landing one, where Washington has a direct route, and it's having the 2nd overall pick. Even if Caleb is off limits, which I would imagine Kliff is going to be very interested in Caleb, given that he just worked last year for USC, so he's going to know him very well. But there are a ton of other guys that he's going to have his pick of the litter. Even if I told you right now, Caleb is a 1,000,000% lock to go number 1 overall, the Bears are going to trade Fields, take him. Okay, you get a quarterback class of 6-7 guys. You get your pick of the litter of that guy. You, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters working together. I also think when you factor in his offense, there were rumors out there about Adam Peters and Washington Brass already really liking Bo Nix. I think clearly Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels are going to be in play when it comes to Washington, right? A lot of people think Drake May is the lock number 2 pick. I wanted to love Drake May until I watched him like for 3 straight weeks and was like, yeah, good prospect, but not some can't miss all-time awesome draft pick potential. Very talented, physically looks the part, good arm, but you're watching him, you're like wishing for a little more. And one thing with Kliff Kingsbury, it's kind of clear what he likes, right? Patrick Mahomes, a lot of movement. Obviously, Kyler Murray. Well, Bo Nix kind of fits that, and definitely Jaden Daniels fits that as well. So I think those 2 guys are obviously in play when it comes to Washington. Now, if we look at the Caleb Williams situation, what if the Bears and Ryan Poles really likes one of these other quarterbacks and go, listen, going from pick 2 to 1 is not typically worth next year's 1, right? It might just, hey, give us your 2nd round pick, give us the 3rd round pick this year and move up 1 spot. But because of Caleb Williams, if that's who you really want, how about this? You give us your 2nd round pick this year and you give us your 1st round pick next year, or else we'll just take them. We are open to business. We are willing to listen. And that's going to happen. One thing that is going to be a theme for the next February, March, April, basically 90 days, give or take, till the NFL draft, is the constant posturing of the Chicago Bears, which is the right move to do. Be open to everything. Even if internally you're dead set on one thing. Open to everything. Now, we will know, because if Justin Fields is going to get dealt, it's going to happen in the middle of March when free agency happens. But even when that trade happens, it doesn't mean that you can't still posture of like, yeah, we really like Drake May and Jaden Daniels, and we don't think there's a gap. Or maybe you're not 100% sure, at least telling the league, that Caleb Williams is our top quarterback. So get ready, buckle up, because it's going to be nonstop. And if you're watching, maybe you realize, like, yeah, why, throw all that draft capital when we can get a guy that Kliff and Dan Quinn now feels is going to be successful in this offense. So I think Kliff Kingsbury, and this is what I kept saying about when teams like, who should we draft? What should we do? Until I know your coaching staff, your schematically, what you envision your franchise and the idea of your philosophical belief in building a football team, we're just guessing a month ago. Now we start to get some clarity, right? The Atlanta Falcons, Zach Robinson, mentioned this on the mailbag. They're going to run the McVay-Shanahan offense. They are much more inclined to take someone not named Justin Fields. Do you know who had the opportunity to draft Justin Fields and thought he was not a good player for the offense? Kyle Shanahan. Now, they ultimately picked the wrong guy as well, but why now would we think now it's an upgrade for Atlanta, right? Justin Fields is way better than anything they have. So out of desperation, I guess, if you don't have any other options, but is that a great fit for the offense? Part of this offense, a key with the offense, which a lot of teams are running, accuracy on simple passes. Like, part of what makes CJ Stroud awesome, clearly is a great down the field thrower, very accurate. Layup passes, he's hitting like 95%. The problem with the Justin Fields, the Trey Lances, is their inaccuracy on layup passes are a disaster. I can't run that offense if on basic throws, I'm talking wheel routes, quick screens, it's very hit or miss. I got to be basically 100% on that. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. One story today that came out that was making the rounds on the interweb was the Ben Johnson situation. Let me say this. There is nothing wrong with loving being a coordinator. I've been pounding this drum forever. Being the number 2 in some industries probably sucks because it's not that lucrative, right? Being the CFO of a Fortune 500 company doesn't suck. You're making 7 figures, right? Being the number 2 at the local deli is probably not as sweet as running the thing and owning the operation. Being an offensive or defensive coordinator in the NFL, you're talking a 2 or 3 year contract, guaranteed close to $10 million. It is a very, very lucrative job where you don't bear the responsibility of the majority of things that happen, especially when they go wrong. And you only have to focus on half the team. Ben Johnson's also 37. I was told by a buddy in the league last year, and I saw Schefter and other people talked about it, that last year he was not very comfortable with like taking the jump, 1 year offensive coordinator, being a head coach. He didn't think it was ready, which I don't know about you. I can honestly say multiple times in my career, it's like, I don't know if I'm quite ready for. I remember when I first got hired by the Eagles, I'm like, this is a lot. But I didn't have a choice. I was just there, but I just had to figure it out on the fly. I didn't know if I was going to make it 6 months. I don't think Howie thought I was going to make it 6 months. It was intense. 24, 25 years old. I felt like I was over my head a little bit. Luckily, I worked around a lot of good people. They're basically all still in the league. And I just kind of figured it out on the fly. But I was the lowest guy on the totem pole. When you get put in some of these positions, it's why a lot of coordinators flame out. It's why a lot of head coaches flame out. They're not ready. So I give you a lot of respect for, hey, I'm not ready. I'm not comfortable. I'm making a ton of money. I'm in a good spot. I'm comfortable with it. No problem with that. I do think, though, there is a way to conduct business. And I would imagine there are a lot of people listening that are parents, right? Especially of young kids. And there are probably a lot of basic life lessons that you want to teach your children from a young age, right? Treat people with respect. Be nice to others. Look people in the eye. Like, there are just some basic things that you learn as a young child that you carry with you the rest of your life. My dad used to hammer, be early, be early, be early, be on time, be early. And it's honestly, it's like a addiction to me, which is not the healthiest thing. Sometimes I'm too early, airports and just different stuff. But there are just things about the way that you conduct yourself that carries over professionally. You don't realize this when you're 7, 8, 5, 10, whatever. The rest of your life, the way to treat other people and conduct business, that works. Those are lessons that you learn as a young guy. And Ben Johnson, either him or his agent, texted Washington as they were flying to Detroit. Now, granted, they were interviewing Aaron Glenn as well, that he was out. It's like there is a way to conduct business. I have no problem with him telling them after the interview, like, listen, guys, this probably isn't a fit. I think I'm going to stay here. That's his prerogative. This is big boy business. To text them as they're flying out, that's bad business. That's kind of dumb, right? Because the other thing now, the perception of Ben Johnson around the league is, when's this guy going to be ready? Does this guy have the ability to be a head coach? I think it would be, if I was a GM or an owner next go around, are you comfortable with this? We've seen some weird shit happen. I'll give you an example with Josh McDaniels. At the time when he backed out of the Colts, I was like, that's fucking insane. The press conference was the next day. They'd already hired coaches. Eberflus was already there. They were ready for him to be the job. And he got cold feet, whatever. Robert Kraft talks him out. And as time went on, you're like, listen, it wasn't the right fit. He got cold feet. The quarterback situation was up in the air. Not that crazy, even if he didn't handle it well. And then it turns out when the Raider situation, a year and a half after he got ran out of town, you're like, that was probably a pretty big red flag. Sometimes, what's the adage that kind of goes around when someone tells you who they are to listen? It happens a lot with draft prospects. Like, this guy's been in a lot of trouble. And it's like, we can fix him. And then you get him and he stays in trouble. Now, if you only went by that, you would never draft anyone with red flags. And a lot of guys with red flags turn their life around. Honey Badger was kicked off the team in college. He's been the team captain for 3 different teams he's been on. Honestly, it might be 4 now. The Cardinals, the Texans, the Chiefs, and now the Saints. Right? So you never know with men, right? We can mature. It's like a different human being. But with Ben Johnson now, we've had 2 straight years of just being a little weird. There is no disputing. He's an elite offensive coordinator. Elite. Been watching football for 30 plus years. Watching his offense these last couple of years has been a joy to watch. Watching that game plan against the 49ers, that fucking guy came in ready to go to the Super Bowl. But being a head coach is about more than being a coordinator. And clearly there are some reservations deep down. Like, there were no reservations with Mike Tomlin showed up to Pittsburgh in his mid-30s to get the head coaching job. Kyle Shanahan, when he got the 49ers job, had been a coordinator for 8 years. He was 37 years old. Sean McVay showed up at 31 years old wanting to run the organization. There is this internal confidence, cockiness, bravado, whatever, that some dudes have since they were in their teens. Ben Johnson might lack that. I'd be lying if, I'm Mr. Not insecure. We all can have insecurities. When you're the boss, though, those have to have some limitations, in terms of creeping into your mind. And this would be something, if I was a GM or I was an owner, I would be very nervous when it came to doing business with Ben Johnson moving forward. Another story today. I want to read you a quote from Dianna Russini on a podcast she does for The Athletic when asked about Mike Vrabel. Quote, I don't think there was a fit for him. I don't think he sat in front of any owner who thought that his style was going to work for what they were looking for. I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me that Vrabel's physical build, that he's a very large human being, that he can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. And that is a factor. Essentially saying that Mike Vrabel, being a big former player, and let's face it, a badass, is intimidating to owners and GMs. When I first got into radio, I was around the Harbaugh 49ers. And Trent Baalke is not like a small guy, but compared to Jim Harbaugh, looked like a JV human. And Jim Harbaugh is an intimidating guy. Dan Campbell walks in the room. He's going to more than likely, unless some NBA players are in there, Trent Williams is going to be the biggest guy in the room when it comes to executives and other coaches. If you are intimidated by a guy's physical build in the sport of football, you're going to have problems. The reason football and the military get compared so often, obviously in military, it's life or death, right? Not everyone comes home. Listen, I grew up around it. My dad's brother never made it home from Vietnam. I saw the impact that can have on a family. It's not good. It sucks. Wouldn't wish it upon anybody. But there is a hierarchy, right? And there is someone at the top of that hierarchy, a lot like a home, right? If you have a couple kids, the mom and dad are in charge. The children are not. In a football building, this is not the NBA. The players are not in charge. The assistant coaches are not in charge. The general manager does not run the team. The head coach is at the top of the food chain. It's why the Cowboys have some issues. Mike McCarthy's resume is not bad. Won a Super Bowl, wins a lot. Everyone in that building, player or assistant coach, knows that Jerry Jones is the boss. He's in charge. We all know it. Where if you look around the league, like Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, Belichick forever, all the organizations that have had a ton of success or coaches that have had a ton of success, Pete Carroll for a long time, they're in charge. They're the boss. When they say something, that John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, if they want to draw a line in the sand, they get to. If you're intimidated by Mike Vrabel's size, I can't take you seriously. I mean, this is the most violent game we have. Not hockey. Not a big hockey guy. Obviously, a lot of respect. Those guys, tough as shit, play literally on ice. You know what I mean? It's a violent sport where intimidation, leadership, all that stuff isn't part of the deal. It's essential. You can't function without it. Now, listen, I understand if I'm an owner and I'm paying you, especially a guy like Vrabel is going to cost 13, 14, $15 million. Can you be nice? Like one of the knocks was a little Belichickian. He wouldn't listen to anybody. Like that's a interpersonal dynamic. And then there's he's too intimidating. It's like, well, does the guy know what he's doing? So what that he's got the biggest swing and you know what when he walks in the door? And he knows that if a fight broke out, he could beat up everybody. Dan Campbell knows that. Now, one thing Dan clearly has that I would say Mike is going to have to work on from a perception standpoint, feels pretty easy to work with Dan Campbell. Like, pretty good teammate. Now, here's where I would defend Vrabel. And listen, I don't know all the dynamics of the John Robinson firing, the Rand Carthen. It feels like that was a lot of owner-driven. Well, if you hire a general manager that I don't know and we don't have any commonality in terms of never worked together, maybe philosophically we don't view football the same from every angle, it might not work. I've said this before, and I will say this till the day I die. If you don't respect the guy you work with, even if you think individually he's okay at his job, but I just don't respect, like you're in that position telling me what to do, you have no chance. You can't function. So, like I said, I get an owner being uncomfortable with Vrabel, his unwillingness to take ideas and just acknowledge, like, yeah, like I should, I'll listen to you on this one, which is something he's going to have to work on. But from a size standpoint, that he scares you when he walks in and sits at the table when you guys are talking about free agency or a game plan, that's a pretty big red flag in your organization. It really is. Like, I want my coach to fucking be nuts. And I got news for you. They all are. Some of them smile more, Andy, Pete. Some of them are more negative on a daily basis. Belichick, Kyle. Coaches are crazy. They come in all shapes and sizes. But there is a small percentage of any of them when it comes to head coaches that know what they're doing and that you have a chance to win with. The overwhelming majority of coaches we've seen over the last 30 years in the NFL are going to get run out of town very, very quickly. They have at most 3 or 4 years. I watched Dan Quinn. One thing clearly Dan Quinn has going for him, and he's clearly got the crazy bug. Like, you can't be a good NFL coach. You can't be a good football coach in general, high school, college, pros, without being nuts. Something deep down that makes you just kind of crazy. You need it. It's essential. I've seen it firsthand. If you do not have it, you have no shot. But the push to have like this kumbaya moment seems a little crazy. This is not a kumbaya sport. The moment you start winning, everyone's happy. Even Wink Martindale said last year, we didn't like each other. I couldn't stand working here. But we were the 6th seed competing. You win, everyone will figure out a way to move forward. And that's the whole point when you hire a coach. You're hiring the guy to help your franchise win. So the intimidation factor to me, I would never want that to get out if I was an owner or a GM that I personally was insecure being around a coach who was big. Some of these guys used to play in the NFL. Doug Peterson, big guy. Frank Reich, big guy. Mike Vrabel, big guy. Dan Campbell, big guy. The NFL ain't full of tiny people. I don't know if you ever get the chance, to get to an NFL practice or somehow get a sideline pass to get pregame in the NFL, even in college, it's full of massive human beings. So I would keep that very close to the vest if I was one of those people leaking to Dianna Russini that, yeah, we were just a little intimidated by Vrabel's size. He is big. I had cocktails years ago. I wouldn't say with him, but I was with Deuce Staley, and Vrabel was having a cocktail at the bar in Indy. It's like, goddamn, this fucking guy's huge. But Doug Peterson was standing right next to him, too. They were same size. Some other coaching nuggets from around the league. Jay Harbaugh, Jim's son, looks like he's going to Seattle with Mike Macdonald. I love the Harbaugh family is just the connection that family has over football and how they share people is truly pretty special. Greg Roman, who worked for Jim, then he worked for John. Now he's back working for Jim again. You go on social media, everyone thinks Greg Roman is the worst coach in the history of the league. Last I checked, he's been the offensive coordinator for a lot of teams that are pretty good. It's like, well, his passing game. You see, Lamar's dramatically better as a passer now than he was a couple years ago. But, let's not act like he was coaching John Elway and Mahomes and Josh Allen in their primes, especially in San Francisco. So this notion that Greg Roman is the village idiot, give me a break. Now, is he Bill Walsh or Andy Reid? No one's saying that. But if you go on social media, you would think Jim Harbaugh just hired the worst coach available. And Jay Harbaugh, who, going Mike Macdonald, who's a John Harbaugh guy, the Chargers getting the general manager from the Ravens. They just share coaches. They share GMs. I love it. This is my favorite story, I think, from the last couple of days. Jed Fish, who's now the head coach of the University of Washington, is hiring Steve Belichick to be his defensive coordinator. His offensive coordinator, his name is Brennan Carroll, who is Pete Carroll's son. So he has a Belichick as his defensive coordinator, a Carroll as his offensive coordinator. If you don't think that during practice this fall, spring practice, we're going to get some viral clips of Belichick and Pete Carroll in UW gear at practice addressing the team, get ready because that's pretty cool. It really is. And as someone who didn't do what their parents did, I do think it's cool when the family business, the family member has the same passion for what their dad did. Now in coaching, we're seeing that all over the league now. Kubiak, Shanahan, Belichick. And I think Steve Belichick, this is a classic media. They just thought he was sucked. Yet Gerard Mayo, who was just hired, went to the mat, said Steve is not only a good coach, considers him his best friend. Now, I don't know much about his coaching, but everyone, publicly talks about Steve like he's pretty good. I'm fascinated to watch this one. Big Ten, Steve Belichick. Sign me up. Another defensive move that looks like it's likely to happen. Now, they're interviewing other guys. Ron Rivera, I think, interviewed today with the Cowboys. Mike Zimmer. I never understood this with, obviously, Mike's older and he's kind of a curmudgeon. But Spielman, the GM, Rick, who helped the Washington Commanders with their search. I watched those Washington teams with Zimmer and Spielman, and my takeaway was always they're pretty good. This is a pretty high-level operation. I do think it's kind of crazy no one hired Rick Spielman to be the GM again. I know it didn't end great, but when I watched that operation for a long time, like he was drafting a ton of good players at every position, and their team was good. You can't get another GM job? Does he have like a record or something we don't know about? Like what is going on? I get it a little bit with Zimmer, old, edgy guy, kind of hates quarterbacks. I don't understand it with Rick Spielman. All these GM, like to me, he should be a general manager in the NFL. But Mike Zimmer with Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys, I hope that happens because that would be fun. Mike Zimmer's a good defensive coach. I mean, he kind of knows what he's doing. If you had told me, would you rather have Ron Rivera or Mike Zimmer as your defensive coordinator? Like, are we even having this conversation? Is this what a waste of breath? Mike Zimmer.